Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the host of the podcast, and today I have the pleasure of talking with the Christopher Lovingood from the class of 2014. Hello, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, Buzz?
It's good to catch up with you. So let's start with where you are currently and what's going on in your life, and then we'll kind of work our way back to WIU.
Yeah, so right now I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been here since 2018. It's been fun here. Did a 3-year contract here, and I'm going to be starting a new job in Raleigh, North Carolina within the next month. So I'm pretty excited about that. Before I came to Pittsburgh, I was in Fort Myers, Florida. Really happy I went down there for about 2 years' time. Met my mentor down there. He really kind of shaped my path in terms of trying to be a better journalist, getting better with writing and communicating with the public. So that was really interesting down there. Covered a hurricane. Never want to live through a hurricane again. But and then before that, I was in my hometown, Peoria, Illinois, from 2014 to 2016. Basic kind of get my feet wet, be into the newsroom before. I'd never worked in a newsroom. I even interned with a newsroom. So I was at like square one trying to learn the basics, but eventually I kind of got the hang of it. And then before that, I was at Western.
So let's work our way all the way back. You're from Peoria.
Yep.
Okay. And also from, which I was surprised, a very large family.
Oh, yeah. And Stephanie went to Western as well. She's the reason why I went to Western. She went there, played basketball on a full ride there. And she said, Western's a good place. Get your stuff going. They got a good program here. So I went over there. But yeah, huge family. I'm one of 11.
So do you think that, being from such a big family had an influence on and making you into, sort of the journalist that is a storyteller?
The storyteller aspect of it, yes. I came from a family where my oldest sister, I wasn't alive at the time, but my oldest sister would come up with little, I don't know, they're almost like plays that she would read for my older siblings when they were younger. And then when I got older, my sister Erica and we were the 90s kids, and we'd watch the cartoon Rugrats. And after we'd watch it, we would remember verbatim the lines of all the characters all the time. And then during dinner after the episode, we would recite it back verbatim. And we did that as I don't know, we did it. It was like our form of Netflix before Netflix, so to speak. But that's where the storyteller, the storyteller aspect came from that. And I tried my hand at writing books and stuff like that in my spare time. And I mean, I've never actually finished a book that I've written, but yeah, having a big family definitely had an impact on the storyteller aspect.
I think I've heard this story before, that somehow you were, because you didn't, your first intention was not to be sort of a broadcast journalist. You were actually interested in a different area. And did somebody give you some indication that you had the right voice? Or
Yeah. So growing up, I mean, I remember freshman year of high school, actually before freshman year, I remember very clearly asking my mom, when was my voice going to drop and get deeper? Because I sounded like a little kid. And she's like, don't worry, puberty will hit and stuff like that. And I remember very clearly during freshman orientation in high school, I came to school, and when I started talking, I remember I ran into my friend Tiana, and she was like, Chris? And I was like, yeah, my voice dropped a little bit. And it was very noticeable that my voice got deeper. And then, I got some jobs in high school. I worked at a movie theater, worked at GameStop for a while. People kept saying, you ever thought about going to radio? You thought about going to television? You should go to radio. You should go to television. And in high school, my junior year, I went into, I had actually it was junior year and my 10th grade year. It was like an AutoCAD kind of class. You use Autodesk Inventor, learning how to engineer and that type of stuff, because I thought I wanted to be an architect. My grandfather was an architect. He actually designed the high school I went to. Worked for the government for some years, and I thought that was the path that I was going to take. But we had an architect come in my 11th grade year, and he just made it sound so boring. I remember very clearly he sounded like Kermit the Frog, and we would talk to him. about what architects do. He was from a local firm, and we're like, hey, so what's it like? Do you like design houses and stuff? And he's like, oh, well, not really houses. I mostly work for, local firms and stuff. And he made it sound so boring. And I asked him, did he spend time with his family? And he says, whenever he got the chance, but most of the time he was at the office. He just made architecture sound boring. And I said, okay, I don't think this is for me. I thought I was hyped for it. I don't think it's for me. And I remember going to my counselor, Mr. Dwyer. I said, Mr. Dwyer, I don't think architecture is for me. This guy made it sound boring, and I don't know what I want to do. And he goes, well, you ever thought about doing anything with mass communications or broadcasting? You had a nice voice for that. You should look into that. And I did it. I did it my senior year. I wish I would have did it my 11th grade year too, but it happened, everything the way it's supposed to. And my senior year, I went into Dr. Kearns's class, and he really opened the gateway into the world of broadcasting, about the history of it. NBC Blue, NBC Red, before they kind of branched off into, eventually I think it was CBS, one of them turned into, and just the whole history of it. He told me went through the whole history of it. We got to make audio plays, we got to make commercials. We went from like doing audio stuff to doing video stuff. He just made the experience really good, and I credit him to being the person that really took an interest in me and helped me get interested in the broadcasting. He just retired from that school about a month ago, a couple weeks back actually, and without him, I don't think I would have gotten the interest into being in broadcasting. And that's where I eventually learned to I eventually went to Illinois Central College for 2 years. I was a transfer student at Western, so I went to Illinois Central College for 2 years, got my gen eds out the way, got to do projects there. That was fun too. And then eventually I made my way to Western, and that's when I met Jasmine Crichton. She kind of was newish there too, and kind of got the broadcasting department going, and with the newscast kind of improving it a bit. And I don't know, she kind of opened it up. There's a lot of people helped me along the way.
Yeah. So what do you remember the first thing that you kind of got involved in when you came to WIU? What was the first sort of project that you thought, okay, this is exciting. I like doing this?
So I purposely took the first semester to just hang back and watch to see what everybody did. I just wanted to see how it all happened. I took Roger Sadler's class. He kind of got us into media law, which actually, I almost walked out of Western wanting to be a lawyer after that class because it was just so fascinating. But the first semester, I purposely just kind of hung back. And in the second semester, after I got to know Jasmine a little bit, I said, all right, I kind of want to be involved in the newscast. So that's when I started anchoring the newscast. I believe at that same time, we were doing news packages for Roger's class. So I would bring a package in, that kind of thing, and I would also anchor. And then the university TV, I remember talking with those guys because we took a little trip over there, and they were just very like, hey, we want you guys to come use this service. Like, no one's really using it. Please, like, if you have an idea for a show or something, we'd love to see it, what have you. So I didn't really have an idea for a show, but I wanted to, I started doing voice work to pay for my rent because when I came to Western, I didn't have a job. I eventually had 3 jobs at one point, so money wasn't an issue, but I did voice work as one of those jobs. But I needed a video to help usher in people to start taking up my services. So I went to University Relations. I wrote a script, and it was silly. And my delivery, even when I watched the video, I laughed because it was just so, not cringe, but it was just like, oh my gosh, like I was a baby during that time. But it brought people in. I think on average, I was making $500 a month, and that was more than enough that I needed to like take care of my rent. But the university TV, it was very simple, just a quick, fade in from black, quick zoom in. It was like super, super simple. And they're like, oh, thanks so much. We love when people do this. So that was another thing that I was a part of as well. But no, mostly I just did the newscast. And then one semester I did strictly behind the scenes stuff because they wanted to teach us about how to, how to use the board and how to put video in, that kind of thing. And how to, just know the behind the scenes kind of work. And I did a practicum with Roger where it was the entire semester. I just had to do a package a week. That was it. That was the whole thing. I got credit for it. And I'm glad that I did because that helped me flex my creative muscle in telling stories. I won 2 awards doing that. So it was like, I knew, yes, storytelling, that is the way to do it. News is definitely the way to do it. And yes, I do enjoy doing news, but I also love telling stories, just of interest. That's not necessarily the story of the day. So Western definitely had a lot of opportunities, and I was glad that I went there.
Yeah, I really appreciated how you found where your strengths and your talents, your skills, sort of as you said, grew in by doing lots of different things. Doing a little bit on, you started on air, but you also did the behind the scenes work as well, which I think was really cool. And I always appreciated, and it seemed like whenever I was as department chair giving a tour, there was Chris Lovingood working somewhere, usually in the computer lab, and people thought I placed you there, but you were generally always, it seemed like, working and typing away and doing something. And you were such a bonus, I tell you. I always appreciated when I could stop by and see Chris Lovingood sitting there, because people would walk away and say, now that is a young man that's going to go places. Back, and this was, it was just wonderful. People, as I said, thought it was a plant.
No, I mean, especially when I got access to the computer lab, because when Sam Edsel was there, he taught me how to fine tune my editing. But I also took a class on how to design a website, which I didn't think I would ever need, but I've used it multiple times to design websites, particularly chrislovingood.com. It's not necessarily amazing, but it serves its purpose. And there was always something for me to do, and I did want to utilize my time at Western. Did I go to Party? Sure, maybe 5 times total in my 2 years there. But I knew that I wanted to get in, get what I needed to know, and get going, because the particular field I was going into was going to be competitive. And if I walked out with nothing to show for it, I was like, this is not going to happen. And I got my first job because of Western. There was the Washington tornado that hit in 2000, I want to say 13. And I had worked at GameStop at the time. And Nick Stewart, who's now at, I think KWQC, I think. No, he's in somewhere in Iowa. He's not KWQC.
In Iowa, yeah.
He was going out there because he just, him, that dude, I've always admired him, because if there's a storm, I'm going to go chase it. I'm like, good luck to you, Nick. But he's a great dude. But Jasmine at the time was like, hey, you should go with him. Mario Calero, who, he does stuff with NFL Sports and Fox Midwest. He was like, Mario's going with him. I think you hop in there, do a package, bring it back. It would be great. And what was cool about that was my first actual day turn story. I was like, you had to go out there, shoot it, do the whole shebang, and then come back. And it was like an hour, maybe 2-hour drive-ish to Washington from Macomb. But I almost said, I can't go because this, that, and the other. It's just Chris. Jasmine was like, Chris, you really need to go to this. I'm telling you, this will be like the thing that gets you your job. And she was right. I put a package together. I think I had one little flub in there where I used a word that I probably could have replaced, but it was good. Mario had the steady cam, and I did a stand-up. Governor, I think Pat Quinn at the time was out there, and he met up with people, and we showed all the damage and just all the destruction with it. And it was just like, wow, on the limited time we had, we came and did it, and we got everything we need. And Nick was like, all right, we're headed back now. So we left, and it was like, that was my first, like, hey, go out, get the story, bring it back, that kind of thing. And my news director at the time at WEEK, he saw it, and he said, hey, you're about to graduate soon. Would you like to have a job? Went in, interviewed, the whole shebang. And I had a job before I graduated. So all that stuff that I did at Western, before all of that stuff, it culminated into getting my first job. And now that I think about it, I'm like, man, that was like, oh boy, what, 6 years ago, like 7 years ago? And it's just like, man, time goes by quick.
It sure does. And you mentioned so many of those other students that you were working with. And what I always appreciated, we were a smaller group. We've always been a smaller department, but the people were dedicated and encouraging, and also driven in the fact that they were never satisfied. It would always be the next week, what are we going to do to top this? They were always trying to find ways to challenge each other, which I thought was a good trait for our students. Yeah,
we had the resources there, and I'm like, let's play with the toys. I mean, I'm a big toy person, so it's like, if I have something I can use, I would do it. And you guys let us check out equipment. And granted, at the time, parking on Western's campus was like a nightmare. So like trying to get gear loaded up was like, you had to lug this big old, and I lived maybe 10 minutes from Salee Hall. So I had to lugged this whole thing up a hill and like down a hill. It was just like a whole thing. But no, you guys gave us the tools there. I learned a lot. I learned from the people I worked with, like other students. I learned from you guys, obviously the staff. And I do accredit a lot of where I am today because of my time at Western. I didn't waste time. I took advantage of all the resources that were there. And I knew that Eastern Illinois had a program, and I knew that, Illinois State University had but it's just like Western, my sister went there. She seemed comfortable with it. And then I saw the little DVD you guys sent, goodness gracious, of all the stuff they did. And I said, I want to be a part of that. And I did. And at the time we had just went through a graphics package. I think Jack Pluta designed the new logo that they still use. And then Mario learned how to animate. It was like if you didn't know how to do something, we learned how to do it. And it was something that was useful in the future in some degree. And I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like there was that group of people that was interested in doing stuff. Andrew Bacon, I think he's going to be down in North Carolina. So I'll be able to see him.
That's right.
You saw him. That kid, I try to link him up with another kid that I'm kind of mentoring right now. Like Andrew, I've always been fond of him because he knew what he wanted. And he went and got it. He did his weekly program, interviewing the coach and stuff. And now he's working for the ACC. I'm like, it's like there's no one was surprised that he got that job because he was hustling and grinding that entire time. The entire time.
Yeah, very focused, just as you were. And then you got this opportunity to work in your hometown, your first job. What was that like? Was that hard being back in hometown? Was it a better transition for you?
It was hard in the sense that I had to live with my parents. But it's like, you just move back home. You're not, I just graduated from college. I want to go, off on my own. But it just, my first job did not pay a whole lot. My thing is I did not understand payment to necessities ratios. So I didn't realize that like a third of your income goes towards like housing and stuff. So my parents like, hey, you ain't got to pay rent. Just live here, save your money, that kind of thing. And I'm glad that I did because it was nice to be near my best friends. The people I went to school with grew up and, they saw me on TV. So that was kind of cool. I got to anchor. I did weather for a bit, which is another skill that I've had to utilize here in Pittsburgh. And it was nice. It wasn't hard. I teased at the beginning, but it was actually nice being back home because in this job, it's a nomad lifestyle kind of thing where you live somewhere for a little bit and you pack up and go like I'm doing right now, going to Raleigh. But I hope to be in Raleigh for a very long time. That's the goal anyway. But it was easy being back because my best friend's still back there. Things were nice and I could be around my family. But, I've been to Florida, as I mentioned before, since then. I've been to Pittsburgh since then. And I very rarely go back home. I haven't seen my mom in like 2.5 years. And it's been hard, especially with the pandemic. But we know we're signing up for when we get into it. It is a public service. We do this for the people. I can't speak for everybody else. I legitimately do what I do to inform people. It sounds cheesy when you say it out loud, but I really do because people need to know some of the stuff. But it wasn't that bad being back home. It was probably harder going from home to Fort Myers, Florida. And not because it was difficult leaving home, but just because that's an 18-hour drive. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like a long way from home. That was a big boy leave. But then I came back, moved to Pittsburgh, and that was it's like a 9-hour drive back to Peoria if I wanted to make it, which I've done, I think once. Actually, I think twice now that I think about it. And now when I go down to Raleigh, I'll be near family. My sister Jackie lives maybe 45 minutes away from Raleigh. So that'll be nice.
So when you moved down to Florida, was it similar? What were you learning along the way as you moved down to Florida and took that job, as a reporter down there?
So in Peoria, I learned the basics. As I mentioned, I did not intern at a TV station, so I was at a great disadvantage walking into a news station. I learned the basics, both sides packages, put stuff together, the whole shebang, basics and performance on air, weather, I guess. And then when I went down to Florida, that's when I really needed to fine tune my writing. And I needed to fine tune my performance and fine tune my appearance. My mentor, Jeff Butera, who's still the night anchor at ABC 7 down there, he would look at I was looking for a mentor, and there was one anchor that I was trying to make him my mentor, like asking questions. Hey, can you look at my script? He just didn't seem like he was interested. He goes, yeah, well, it was okay. There was no actual feedback. Like some people just aren't meant to teach, and that's fine. But then Jeff would look at my scripts, and he would do it in a loving way, but it was like he'd poke fun at my scripts, going like, "What do you mean when you say this?" Because I used to write just very long-winded sentences, and I go, "Why? I think this." It'd be a very short answer. He goes, "Well, why don't you just say that? Like, why are we writing these long sentences?" And he kind of got me interested in improving my writing. He wrote a book on it that I picked up and read, and it helped me get better. And through him, I learned how to write better. I learned how to connect with viewers better. I learned how to research better, because when you have to fine tune your writing, you're almost forcing yourself to research new information for a story. Sometimes it's hard to explain unless you actually do it. So he was like the cornerstone of me reaching that next level in journalism and asking the right questions, communicating better with the viewer, and then ultimately making sure that we're serving the viewer. Like, if this information does not pertain to the viewer, if it's not necessary for them to know, why are we putting that in the story? And he was very big on that. So I am glad that I went down there, because if not just to meet him, because he opened my eyes into what journalism is right now, but what it could be in a better sense.
And then your next opportunity, as you said, was this position in Pittsburgh, which again, it's a bit larger market, bigger city, and you go in there just guns a-blazing in terms of doing such a wonderful job. What change, what kind of growth did you have in Pittsburgh that's moved you along?
So my growth in Pittsburgh was essentially, and I say instantaneously as hyperbole, but when I got here, my second day was there was a teenager, Antoine Rose II, who was shot and killed by a white police officer. And it shut down the major roads downtown, the whole shebang. And my second day was just supposed to be me hanging out in the control room, watching a newscast. And they said, "Hey, would you mind going down with the photographer? And, people are shutting down these streets." I said, "Yeah, sure." And we're down there, and people are, they're marching, that kind of thing. And at some point, I just told the photographer, "Give me your microphone." And I just started interviewing people and and then by the time my assistant or my executive producer calls, "Hey, we know you're down there. Would you mind putting something together?" I said, "Yeah, I've already interviewed people. I'll put something together for the night newscast." And that was my second day on the job. And then after that, I didn't have to worry about that initial week of just hand holding that a lot of places do. But I wanted to get to work. Like, you hired me, let me do the job. And I did a first live shot. It was a good live shot. And I was like, okay, first day on the job, not bad. And we put something together that I thought was compelling, and it was good. And then fast forward, 4 or 5 months, and the synagogue shooting happened. And I had just walked off the desk, and I caught up with an anchor here, Mike Clark, because I hadn't actually seen him in months. I was like, I've been really trying to meet up with this guy to talk to him, pick his brain. We talked for 5 minutes, and then our assignment editor at the time was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a shooting at the synagogue." And I grabbed my bag and I leave. I just take off immediately, leave. And I head over to the synagogue, and you see SWAT guys walking around with rifles, and the guy still inside the synagogue at the time. It was like, holy moly, like trial by fire. Like, this is like a big deal. And as you know, it was covered extensively for quite some time. It was just a very emotional time. And then I was the one calling families, confirming that was their loved one inside, trying to get pictures of them. It was a very difficult day that day, but it taught me, it was almost like you never stop learning as like a journalist, obviously, but it was almost like, all right, then this is like the next lesson for you. It's like, this is a tragedy. Like, this is big deal. People die, people are impacted. And this isn't just impacting Pittsburgh, this is impacting the Jewish community as a whole, that kind of thing. And learning to be sensitive to the nature is, oh man, like I remember very vividly. And I remember when I got back to the station, my friend, who's a close friend now, she's the anchor here, Kelly, she just gives me a hug and she goes, "Are you okay? Is everything fine?" And I don't think I was processing what I had seen. And I remember that night I went home to sleep after I'd called the families, the whole shebang. And I was laying there, it was 11 o'clock at night. And I was just like, oh my gosh, people died today. It like finally hit me, because I had been numb to it all day, trying to just not be emotional and just report the facts and that kind of thing. And it hit me. So yeah, and then there was a train derailment in the first 6 months I worked there too. And I was there for the aftermath of that. So it was just like, woo, trial by fire, first 6 months working in Pittsburgh. And obviously, as you know, I anchor on the weekends. So that was obviously improving my anchor ability and, working with somebody else. So my time here was not wasted. I'm going to miss it. I really am going to miss my time in Pittsburgh because I loved it here, and I will be back to visit. Fantastic baseball stadium. But I am hyped to go down to Raleigh, North Carolina.
And what, as I mentioned before we started recording, is that on your professional Facebook page, I saw all these comments, 800 comments from people saying, "We love you, Chris, and we're sorry to see you go. You've done such a great job." I think that shows a great impact that you've had in such a positive way. You know, I think that is a great tribute to you. I think that's really neat.
So I was expecting a response. I will admit that the response that I received was way bigger than I anticipated. And because I knew people watch me. I'm on the weekend mornings. If you're up that early, goodness gracious. But I was surprised to see that many people responded, but I felt humbled by it because it made me feel like, oh, I felt like I kind of mattered here. Like I wasn't just a guy on TV, just, talking. Like it was people actually saw the work that I did. And it was nice. And that's what I wanted to take. That's what I want to take with me when I go down to Raleigh is I want to be a part of a community. As I mentioned, this is that nomad lifestyle, picking up and leaving, but like, I really don't want to move again. Like, I really want to go and just like plant roots and be there. I'd love to buy a house and like, just really find out what's important in the community because, I love my job. I love what we do, but at the same time, you only got one time on this blue marble that we're all spinning around. And it's like, I just want to leave an impact on people. And if it's just me reading to them and making their day a little bit better, if they can turn on the TV for, an hour or two, then I'm down for that.
Well, what I also appreciated is I teach a class on performance, and last semester you did the virtual Zoom and spoke to the students about the importance of storytelling, which, I think it's something I've tried to instruct them about, but when they hear it from you and how you were talking about trying to find what the story is and being able to communicate that, and the importance of writing, all those kind of things really impacted those young people in my class. They all, in their little summary reports, were talking about, and I said, well, I've been saying this all semester, but when Chris Lovingood says it, you all perked up. But because I mentioned that earlier about you being a storyteller, I think you are a really effective storyteller. And I think that's part of the reason for your success.
Well, and that's, again, I attribute that to my mentor, Jeff Peoria. He really got me into the mindset of telling stories and hearing from people. And, a news event can happen, we can talk about the grim things, a shooting and that kind of thing. Most perfect example, most recently, there was I believe he was 21. There was a 21-year-old who was shot and killed nearby. And there's another guy who was shot, but he went to the hospital. And that story would have been so simple, just to police say, blah, 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 happened here. Police say this, that, and the other, and, and then kind of call it a day. But when it comes to shootings, and we do shootings a lot, it's like, these aren't just numbers. These aren't just names that we put out there. These are human beings that had actual stories. They had actual dialogue with people. They had actual impact with people. And granted, there are people who the last thing they want to do after a loved one's been shot, obviously, is talk to the press like that. Why are you in my house right now? Why are you near my house? I'm trying to grieve. But I at least have to try to tell that person's story, because that's not fair. Someone just gets wiped. I mean, I don't know the circumstances of why someone did that, but they still had an impact on a community or loved ones. And if I can tell that person's story and what they meant to that community, then so be it. And yes, if that person, if it's relevant to the story where, a person was mixed up with this, that, and the other, and it's relevant to what's happening, yes, I have to put that in there too. It has to be a fair story, but that's still a life that had some impact to some degree on some people. And I get not obsessed, but that's my focal point, is that everyone's got a story. Everything is a story. And, we can easily report A, B, and C, but I think it takes a little finessing to tell a story in a way that really draws people in. So that's why I really emphasize, even when you look at my handle on my Twitter and Facebook, I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories.
Yeah, and one of the other things that you said was really, I think, impactful for them is that you said about, don't make it about you, meaning me. Don't make it a me story, all about me as the reporter, which I think can be really, sometimes easier to do is to make it about you.
I think it's easy because, and I'll fully admit this, I think a lot of us, when we go on TV, we really just want to be on TV. I mean, it's, you got a camera on you, that kind of thing. And I'll admit, when I first was interested in being on TV, I kind of wanted to be on TV because I was like, oh, people say I have a nice voice, I could be on TV. But when I did that Washington story, as I mentioned, you see people are impacted by it. I knew a woman I grew up with in school, her house was wiped off. Like, if you look at a map from the Washington tornado, it leveled that neighborhood. It was nuts. And then you start to see like, hey, people are impacted by this. And it's like, you have this privilege to pull back the curtain and see what they're going through. They trust you enough to get in and like talk intimately about how they're feeling in that moment. That cannot be squandered. And so that's why my attitude towards television changed, because it was like, this is a moment where I can tell a story that's impactful to the community. That means a lot to these people. So I don't take what I do lightly. I try to be very serious about it all the time, even on the weekends, when I'm being silly. I overthink a lot, and I do it purposely to make sure that is what I'm doing beneficial to the viewer to some degree. Because it always goes back to that person. I always keep that in mind on all things that I do with journalism. And I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm not perfect. But yet I definitely don't make it about me, because it's not about me. It's about the people. And that's sometimes we do what you call, we'll do stand-ups in it. And it's like, every story doesn't need a stand-up in it. You can tell a compelling story without the storyteller in it. Nat Packs are a perfect way where you weave in sound together to tell a complete story, which I have done multiple times. You don't always need to be in the story. There's this belief that, oh, well, the viewer is going to be weirded out if they don't know you're there. No, you tell them that I put this story together, and that's all they need. I did a story in Florida after Hurricane Irma, where they're called the Cajun Navy. They like go to like different disasters, usually down south, and they'll bring their boats. And if a neighborhood's flooded, they'll go and rescue you and your things. And I went down there, and I did it was all Nat Pack of them, why they go down there, why they help these people. And when you know it, we found a family that they had to rescue, and I just recorded the whole shebang. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I could have easily go, today, the Cajun Navy took up, but it's like, you don't need that. Like, why do I need to be the person to do that? They have the story, they have the dialogue, put it together. And I'm glad that I did. That was a story that taught me that you don't always need to be in it. And I always try to fight for that. And sometimes, management will have their own opinion about it. But I believe that a story should be told the way the storyteller believes it should be told. And that doesn't always need to require the storyteller.
Nice. One other thing that I really want to point out is you offered to all the students in my class, and I think that it's probably something you have continued to do, is to be a mentor, is to give feedback, to be able to be somebody that's a sounding board for people that are really truly interested in your profession. Why do you do that? Is it because people have given back to you? I mean, provided that to you?
Oh, man. The amount of people that have given me feedback and just let me pick their brain. There's one journalist I follow in Atlanta. His name's Brandon Keefe, one of the best journalists on this planet. I can say that comfortably. I just had a conversation with him not long ago, and I just really wanted to pick his brain about it. And the wisdom that has been imparted on me from the people that came before me and still work now, and they've been in the business for a while, is like, it's a sign of relief, because it's like, I just need to know. I just want to know how you did this and how you did that. And it's almost like a breath of fresh air when, like, I'm about to go to probably the best job ever, like right now. And it's like, because of people who have taken the time to help me, to coach me along the way, it's like, you've got to give that back to people. That's not fair to like just take that knowledge from someone else and then not pass it on to someone else. There's a kid who went to my high school, who I'm glad I mentioned his name. I should probably text him after this, just to check how he's doing. He said I gave my contact to any kid in that classroom, and only 2 people in that classroom reached out. There was one woman, and there was him. And the woman that reached out, she, I think, is now, I think she's getting into TV news as a producer, which congrats to her. And then Tyler, the guy, he's about to go to a school to get in a sports broadcasting program. And I was like, I just want people to have an easier time, because I know what it's like trying to do something and then just it hurts not being able to do it, not being able to get to where you want to be. And plus, if you've got the ability to help someone, why would you not help?
Yeah. But I also think that, networking is very important, and I want our students to understand about that, but it's not, it's not just trying to see what you can get from the next person. What am I taking? Because you've got the right attitude. If people are given to you, you need to pass it along as well. It's not a one-way street.
It's not. And this is a business where who matters. I know it's like cliche, but it's true. Who matters. It's all about who you know. And I know quite a few people, not as many as I'd like. I'm still working on how to connect. I'll admit I'm not the strongest networker, but I'm getting better at it. But if I can't, because I have people that ask me, hey, can you look at my package? Can you do this? What would you do that and the other? And I'm not going to charge you to give some free advice, because we've all been there. You're just trying to make it. You're just trying to get to what you feel is right. There's that burning inside that's like, I am supposed to do this, but how do I get there? I just need some guidance. And sometimes you don't always get the feedback that you want at work when things are hectic or there's breaking news, or even if you're in school, because everyone's got stuff going on. So I don't know. I just try to make myself available. Hey, you got questions, you just need someone to reach out, or just to look over your reel, even your resume. I've even redesigned someone's resume before. It's sometimes you just need a lifeline. And if I could be that lifeline for someone and to help them to reach some sort of healthy trajectory in their career, I'm going to do it.
That's awesome. And, I'm excited for this next step in your life, Chris. I think, as you said, this is an opportunity for you to continue to shine and to grow. And I just think that, as you continue along your life path, I hope that you feel the love and support coming from WIU in Macomb, Illinois.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it's because of Western that I got my first job. So I learned all those necessary skills from there. And that's all right. And I try to remember to go back and think of all the people who had a positive impact on my career and where I am today. And by no means, I'm not I'm not in the top one market or anything of the sort, but I'd like to think that I've had some success, and it's because of the people, including Western, that have helped me get to where I am right now, that I can say I feel comfortable about my future. Now it's I'm at that point where it's all right, I've got some years of experience. You got to give back now.
Well, Chris, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Oh, not a problem. I'm sorry it took me forever. As you know, been dealing with move stuff, so that's why I've been kind of flaky with responding. But you locked me down, so that's good.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners out there. We appreciate your interest in following along our podcast. If you are interested in being a guest, or you want to recommend someone else, just send me an email. It's that simple. We always like to hear from our alums. And we hope that you continue to watch, listen, and support the university and our podcast. Until next week, stay safe, take care, and God bless.